Welcome back to Supporting Physician Spouses. I'm Kendra.
And I'm Katie. If you've been with us for the last few episodes, you know we've been in a whole series around the match. We've talked about why more research won't help you, what happens when your partner doesn't match, and why every spouse fears a surgical residency and buying a home for residency versus waiting.
It's been a meaty series, and today we're going to wrap it up because all of those episodes circle around the same central challenge, which is how do you hold yourself together when you have very little control over what your life is going to look like next year?
And the answer that we keep coming back to in different forms is the same. It's an inside job. The circumstances will be what they are. The city will be what it is. The program will have its culture. The schedule will be relentless. What you bring to it, that's the variable you actually influence.
Today we're talking about one of the most practical and honestly underused tools in that toolkit. It's called deciding ahead of time.
I love this concept.
So the idea is simple. Before the hard thing happens, before you arrive somewhere new, before you walk into a difficult season, before the chaos starts, you make a decision. You decide in advance who you are going to be in it, what you are going to look for, what you are going to believe. And because you've already decided, you don't have to negotiate with yourself in the middle of it.
That's good. I was actually just having a conversation with one of my children about expecting the best on certain transitions. And he honestly was like, but you don't know it's going to work out. So he kind of lands into, I'm going to forebode any joy. I'm going to expect the worst because that feels safer to him. And I think that's true for a lot of us. That's kind of our natural tendency.
It is, but we can learn to switch it.
Well, one thing I like about this concept is the idea that in the middle of this transition where you're kind of in a survival mode, it's not the time to make decisions. When we're exhausted and overwhelmed with, moving, unpacking, getting settled, and then our spouse being post-call, and you're in a city that you don't exactly know anyone yet, that's not the time that we're having our best thinking.
Your nervous system, like you accurately indicated, is in survival mode. And from survival mode, everything looks like a threat. The neighborhood looks wrong. The people seem unfriendly. The whole situation can feel like a mistake. And what you need in that moment is not a new decision. You need a decision that you already made, something to anchor it.
This is good. I can reflect back to the beginning of residency, and I'm like, I remember feeling that way. Like when the excitement kind of wears off, and then you dip down, and you're like, uh-oh, we made a mistake here.
What did that feel like?
Not good. Yeah, it just like more ladder rungs to crawl up. After we were already there, it's like, oh, now I got to start over and get back to where we started and then just keep seeing the good in it.
Yeah.
This is going to be a good one. Let's get into it.
Let's start by defining what we actually mean, because I want to be precise here. Deciding ahead of time is not the same thing as positive thinking. It's not pretending that things are going to be easy, and it's not performing optimism or convincing yourself that hard things aren't hard.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that right away, because that's kind of where my mind went. Like if I'm choosing to decide ahead of time, it does sound like I might easily fall into that performing optimism. How do we not pretend, but also decide?
Yeah, you don't want it to feel like pretending, and you also don't want it to actually be pretending. And I think that's the distinction. Deciding ahead of time isn't about the situation. It's about who you are inside of it. It's a decision about your orientation to it, your expectation for where you are going to direct your attention. That sometimes the neighborhood really isn't that great. No, you're not supposed to pretend that it's not great. You just need to decide, okay, who am I going to be now that I am in this circumstance where I'm in a neighborhood that isn't great, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. But I want you to keep explaining more because I'm having a hard time. Like, who do I want to be? It just like, okay, I'm not thrilled with where we're at, but like I'm still grounded. I still am resilient. I still know how to create experiences where I thrive, kind of like that.
Yeah. So it's not the sugarcoating piece, like, I'm going to decide this place is going to be perfect
Yeah.
when you know it's not. And
Yeah.
so it's not so much about the thing as it is about you. It's okay, I'm deciding that I am going to be someone who will look for what is good here. It's about training your attention. And we don't experience reality objectively. We experience what we are looking for. And to a degree, what we anticipate is what we find.
Yes. That is always true.
Yes, it is. So I'd heard this story. We had just moved to Arizona, and it was in our church congregation, and it was somebody who was new also. And he was telling like a parable or a story. And I love it because it captures this whole thing really simply. And it was about a family who moved into a neighborhood. We've all had that experience of being somebody new.
Yeah.
And he meets his next door neighbor, and he's talking to the neighbor, and he's asking, so what are the people like here? Are they friendly? What's the community like? And the neighbor doesn't give him an answer, but he gives him a question instead. He says, what were the people like in the neighborhood where you came from? And the man says, oh, they were wonderful. They were great. They were warm. They were generous. They were involved. We looked out for each other. It was a real community. And his neighbor nods and says, you'll find the people here about the same.
That's good.
And I think that's a really good example of how we can be in charge of that, because the continuation of this story is that another man moves into the same neighborhood the same week, and he stops and asks the same neighbor, what are the people like? And the neighbor asks him, what were the people like from where you came from? And he says, they were awful. They were judgmental. They were cold. They weren't friendly. They kept to themselves. Our family never felt like we belonged. And the neighbor says, yeah, you're going to find the people here are about the same. So again, it's same neighborhood, same neighbor, completely different experiences incoming based on what people anticipated to find based on their previous experiences or what they were already looking for. Because what we're looking for, we usually find. It's whatever we want it to be.
I love that question because it just it just gives every individual their own ownership of like, what are you looking for? What are you creating? And what are you going to feed into? Like, what kind of community are you going to feed into? And then that's what you're going to create. You know, you are co-creating this as a new member of this neighborhood.
Yeah. For anybody who's, oh, this is woo-woo. No, it's not woo. This is how perception actually works. There is research in psychology about this going back decades, that what you anticipate primes your attention, and what you attend to shapes your experience, and your experience shapes your belief, and your belief determines what you anticipate next. So it's this feedback loop that's constantly running.
Yeah. So if we arrive somewhere already defeated, already grieving what we left, already convinced this isn't going to work for our family, we're going to find evidence that will confirm that story that we're telling ourselves. I like that.
Yeah.
We'll miss the evidence that it could be different. It could be positive.
Yeah. And neither is your fault. This is just how unmanaged perception works. And the good news is your perception can be managed. And that's what deciding ahead of time is all about.
Yeah, this is fun to reflect on because, you know, as families in medicine, we've moved a lot. And I think I have examples of maybe like super positive energy and then others where I wasn't as excited. And I wouldn't say it ruined our whole experience, but I think it made the transition a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, it sure does. We've been talking for the last several weeks now about the match, and the match is uniquely designed to surface all of this. So you find out in match where your life is going to be for the next 3 to 7 years, and you often don't get your first choice. And you may have never visited the city that you're going to. You're uprooting your kids, your friendships, your routines, and your sense of belonging. And everyone around you says, congratulations. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily land.
Yeah, that's a real thing. There's this window between match day and move day. And we get this choice. And most of us don't realize that we have that choice. The choice is, who are we going to be when we arrive?
Yeah, and you can spend that entire window dreading it, cataloging everything you're losing and building a story about everything that will be wrong, like the fact that there's not a Trader Joe's or the fact that there's 2 Walmarts but no Target. And then you arrive already behind, already looking for confirmation that you were right to be disappointed.
I want to zoom out here a little bit because I think if we only frame this as a match strategy, maybe we miss, that it applies to a much wider audience. This is a life tool. Like we're getting ready to move hypothetically, but we're planning on it. Pre-contemplation stage. No real plans yet, but so this applies to me too.
Yeah, it really is. The match is a vivid example because the stakes are high and the change is dramatic, and all of us have gone through that. But deciding ahead of time is relevant anywhere you are entering something with uncertainty. So it could be a new season of your marriage. It could be a new school year for your kids, a new dynamic with your in-laws, a new role you take on, a new job, or the loss of one, a stage of training, attending life after residency. There's no shortage of applications to this concept.
Okay, so what I want to understand is a little bit more of the why behind this, because it sounds simple on the surface, like just decide to be positive, decide beforehand, who you want to be, which is kind of abstract for me, but I know it's more than that. We've talked about, it's this perspective that we need to hold on to, but what's actually happening as we orient ourselves in this way?
So we're going to talk a little bit then about what's happening in the brain. And I promise I'm going to try to keep this pretty easy because there are some things I still don't understand about it. But there is a structure in your brain called the reticular activating system, and it is essentially a filter. Your brain receives lots of information, lots of sensory information every second. And realistically, it's far more than it can ever consciously process. And so your reticular activating system, your RAS filter, it decides what to bring to your attention and what to push into the background.
And it filters based on like all the information we're bringing in, or share more about that.
It filters it based on what you've told it matters. So it's already taken into account all of the things that you bring in and your existing beliefs, your current goals, the things that you're focused on. And I'm sure everybody has had this experience also where maybe you're looking to get a new car. And let's say it's a white Honda minivan. You suddenly start seeing white Honda minivans everywhere. They were always there. Your brain just wasn't filtering for them before. That is an example of your reticular activating system at work. When you say something is important or you're interested in something, then it goes to work finding it. But it was always there before.
Like the advertising is taking advantage of this.
Oh, absolutely.
We used to believe in like, oh, wow, like this was my desire, like, and it keeps popping up. And now it's like, no, they're reading your emails and that's how they're interested in it.
Yeah, that's like the psychology of marketing. And so they use all of these principles of psychology that exist, and then they figure out how they can use that for their benefit. I know, like, even if you think about like your Instagram algorithm, like if you look at one thing too long, pretty soon you're going to end up with a bunch of it. And
yeah.
So imagine your brain doing the same thing as running an Instagram algorithm. It's doing the same thing. What you pay attention to, what you tell it is important, it starts showing you more of it. It was already there. All of those people had already posted on Instagram before. They just weren't in your awareness. They weren't on your feed. And now they are.
And I just want to say that, like, I'm thinking about an interaction I had with a neighbor when they moved in. We were chatting down on the street. And then another neighbor came and was like, "What are you guys doing?" Because I was like kind of close to her garage. And she had been like tagged by high school students recently.
Oh,
she was
no.
like, "Do you see anyone?" And we're like, "It's just us, like me and this older woman." And she's like, "Okay." And then she kind of chatted for a sec, but was kind of cold. But she's like, speaking of cold, she's like, "I have ice cream on my couch melting. Like, I need to go." But my neighbor was like, "Wow, like that was kind of harsh." But she kind of was in this new transition. So she is trying to, like, kind of field out, like, who are the friendly neighbors, who's not, what's the why. And it feels very evolutionary development as human beings. Like, this is a survival
Yes,
tactic as we
absolutely.
reach a new place and we're trying to figure out who's safe, who's not. Though, in our day and age, we don't really need to worry about safety, or we don't need to process everything like it's safe or not safe.
But I'm glad that you said that as far as like evolution and whatnot. So you take all of your past experiences with you, and that's what forms your perception, is what has already happened.
So do you think there's a skill, like in order to do this well, deciding beforehand, a skill in not taking one-off interactions as full truth as well? Like,
Yes,
get people
absolutely.
that they just had ice cream
Absolutely.
melting.
But this is where it gets complicated because it doesn't happen all by itself. And so you have the ability to rewire that based on repeated experience. So every time you go looking for something warm and friendly, you will find it. And then that reinforces a new neural pathway that says warmth is available here. And every time you look for that connection and you find it, you strengthen the belief that connection is possible for you. And it's those beliefs that then will influence what you look for next. And so it's becoming really conscious and aware of the fact that I am going to make a decision to look for friendly people. When I go to the grocery store, when I go to the gym, when I'm at the library, I'm going to give myself the assignment to find friendly faces. I'm going to look for people who are smiling. I'm going to look for that. And that is what we will find, instead of walking into a situation where we're already set up for people here aren't going to like me. Nobody's going to talk to me. Nobody's going to make eye contact with me. You set that up in advance. And so it's a practice because your default system is going to want to do that if that's your default. But you can retrain your default to be something different.
Yeah.
You're essentially building a new pile of evidence for the story that you want to be true. And in building it, you make it more true.
Right. And as you were sharing that example of, the people you were looking for at the library, you can't have someone smile at you, or you can't expect that unless you're beginning that smile interchange, right? Like,
Right.
so I feel like that just starts with us. Yeah. I want to
Yeah,
go find those
absolutely.
people, but I need to be that person, right? People aren't just going to be friendly at me because they're friendly. It's because you're friendly, and that's how they respond to you. I guess I'm thinking of myself as I was, entering into young adulthood. I've always been a good listener, and I was a little bit more shy as I was growing up. And so I didn't talk much in social interactions, but as I was meeting new people in college, my friends would be like, "Oh, the boys would say, like, your friend's cute, but like she's really quiet." And I was like, "Oh, I'm actually just realizing that, yeah, I didn't talk that much, but I felt really engaged in the conversation." I'm trying to think of how this relates, but I felt like I had to be a talker in order for people to get to know me and like have this connection with people, or else they didn't know that. So like I do feel like I had to bring what I was wanting in order for it to be given back to me. If that makes sense.
I won't disagree with that. I think
Yeah.
adolescence is sometimes a hard example to use because so many of us are just so we all want to be part of a group.
Yeah.
And so there feels like there's a lot more pressure as an adolescent. Maybe not. Maybe even adults have this same thing where they're collecting information first before they show up
Yeah.
and expose themselves to people. They want to know, is this safe for me to be who I am? And so perhaps we're a little bit more reserved because we're scanning to see, is this safe?
Yeah.
Can I show up here as my crazy, weird self? Or do I have to dial things back? What is the safety mechanism in place so that I can belong to this group?
Yeah. Well, and I hear all the time, like, it's so hard to make adult friends, but that hasn't been my experience because I'm like, I come to the park and I'm like talking to the stranger parent and we're just starting conversation. But if you're stuck in like, I'm scanning if it's safe, or I'm really concerned about how I will be received by the stranger, then that would kind of inhibit one to being more open, but maybe it's like a combination thing.
Yeah, just notice where the focus is. So you were describing two different yous. So one, the adolescent you was really focused on me, like my
Self.
performance.
Yeah.
And the other adult you at the park isn't focused on her performance. She's focused on making connection with somebody.
Yeah.
She's there, she's engaging. And so one is an outward and the other one is inward. And so what we're saying here is we can shape this by turning our focus outward. What am I looking for? Not who am I trying to be?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
Okay.
I love it.
And aren't we glad we aren't adolescents anymore?
I
Even though we still bring
know.
some of those things with us.
I mean, having kids, there are things that come up where I'm like, whoa, I'm like reacting to this a little bit. I mean, this is simple, but I was talking with another parent of my kid's friend, and they were like, oh, you remember like this birthday party our kids went to? And I was like, we weren't invited to that birthday party. I was like, whoa, that is
Yeah.
like deep. Even though like I'm glad like going to birthday parties can be really exhausting, you know. But
Yes, it can be.
some things hit, you know, they hit that sensitive string in your heart where you're like, whoa, this hasn't been tapped
they
for a
do.
bit. So I'd love to
They
get
do.
practical a little bit. What
Sure.
how do we actually do this? What are our steps to get through this, Kendra?
Okay, so the first step is to identify the incoming transition. So what is the next hard, uncertain, or new thing on your horizon? And it doesn't have to be a move, although it certainly could be. It could be even just a new school year, maybe moving from elementary school to middle school or middle school to high school or high school to college. What is the next new thing on your horizon? Even like a new phase in your marriage, your husband starting a new job, which is happening really soon. Maybe your youngest starting kindergarten. Like suddenly having free hours you don't know what to do with. Whatever the transition is, you can name it specifically. First step, identify it, name it.
Probably needing to get specific with that rather than like, because there's sometimes where I'm like, logically I know that things are changing, but I haven't really thought about it in depth. Like what does the change mean? How might it affect my family? So getting specific about, okay, what might change, just to do this ahead of time.
Yeah, exactly. So vague transitions produce very vague decisions, and vague decisions don't hold. So as specific as you can be, name it. The second step then is to separate the facts from the story.
This is one of my favorites.
This is what we were talking about earlier. The facts are what is actually true and known. We're moving to Denver. The program is 3 years. We're going to live in a 2-bedroom apartment. He's going to be on call every third night. Those are facts. And then there's the story. We're really good at making stories. This is what we make the facts mean. Denver is going to be lonely. 3 years is forever. The apartment's going to feel like a prison. I'm going to be so isolated. You can see how we can take a set of facts and then we can turn them into a story that then creates a lot of feelings.
Yep. I have great experience with this.
We all do. Like I said, we are really good storytellers.
Yeah. Listeners know for me, my story always, you know, once I get to the bottom of it, it's like, this is impossible. I can't do this. This is so hard. And that story gets me nowhere fast. That's for sure.
Yeah. But again, notice how often you recycle the same story, how you lay that story on different circumstances and different situations that come up. To know that is your default story is valuable information.
It's true. Yeah, now when I get there, I'm like, oh, that's a story.
I see what I just did there. I'm just defaulting back to this where I look at all of the past things, I make a decision about it, I give it a judgment, and then I take that with me into the future for everything else. And like I said, some of us are good storytellers, but what I mean is some of us tell a lot of stories, and then some of us actually tell good stories that move us and the narrative forward and don't keep us stuck in kind of quagmire.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a step 3.
Step 3 is really just to make the decision. The decision needs to be real. It needs to be specific. It needs to be stated out loud. These aren't affirmations. These aren't wishes. They are decisions. And that means sitting down and actually writing them. I think there's something that, like writing a decision, or you can even like transpose that with writing a goal, makes it more real. So your brain registers a written commitment differently than it does a passing thought. Just like a goal is a wish until you write it down, a decision is really a wish until you've committed to it and you've written it down.
Love that. So let's go through a scenario.
Let's say, again, we're going to default to match because that's universally something that a lot of people have just gone through. And let's say you matched and you're moving to a mid-sized city in the Midwest and you know nothing about it. And you could sit down and you can write that I'm going to love this city. I am going to find my people there. I am going to love my neighborhood. I will know my neighbors by name within 6 months. I am going to find a church that becomes my second family, just like home. I'm going to find the coffee or the soda or I'm going to find the place where I can go to regularly and I'm going to see people. This one's perhaps my favorite. I'm going to let the city surprise me. Like, I'm going to be open to seeing what is available. But to make that decision before you even unpack a box, that no matter what happens, I am going to love this city because I'm going to show up. I'm going to be looking for those things. And I am going to open myself up to this experience. And it's going to be good.
As you were saying that, I feel like I've kind of gotten to this point, but then it's as I'm writing them down, I'm like, oh, I need to go do more research on like how I'm going to love them. Like what's cool in this city that I might like. And then that kind of sends you down the research spiral that we've already warned against. Like that's not helping. That's like trying to get more control over like nothing, but it's almost just like, manifesting, believing it, and just like holding on to it. Like it happened.
Yes, there's two ways you can do it. And I think it will depend on what your tolerance is for adventure or open to serendipity, that type of stuff. You can decide and do some research.
Okay.
Maybe that is what helps you get excited about it. That's a different type of research than the type that is, I'm not going to find anything I like, so what can I find that I like? When you're researching, already knowing everything that is presented to me is going to be amazing and I'm going to figure this out and it's going to be great. Yeah. That's a different feeling in the research. So I think it depends on what your intention is. Or maybe you're just like, I cannot wait to be surprised. I can't wait to get there and start exploring, to just go see what I find instead of having done the research before. Whatever fits your personality, then go with that. But if you find yourself researching and then getting anxiety and having to battle with yourself about, oh, this is not going to be great, then maybe time to lay off the research and just open yourself up more to, this is going to be an adventure. I'm going to have a great time. We're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good distinction.
Yeah, I think there actually is another piece to this. And we've gone through the first three as far as acknowledging it, being very specific about it, making the decision and making it real. The other piece that I would add is that you want to revisit these. Things are going to get hard.
Yeah.
You've got to have something that kind of anchors you. A decision that doesn't change your behavior isn't really a decision yet. So if you've decided that you're going to love your neighbors, but you never leave the apartment, then you've actually not decided, you just wish. So the decision has to inform behavior.
Yeah. I think it's so easy to get stuck in inaction.
Yes.
But just like with anything, as we step out of our comfort zones and we're a little bit vulnerable, like that's where cool, serendipitous, fun moments happen in our lives.
Yeah. And it's easy to make all of these decisions when you're sitting in the place that you've lived for the last several years.
Yeah.
And then it's another to be sitting in a new apartment or a home in a different state. And then it's like, okay, this is where I have to actually do something different. So revisit those decisions that you've made. Let those decisions inform your behavior. Make a plan. And like I said, maybe we use goal and decisions interchangeably, that there's something that you have to do there in order to realize what it is you're looking for.
It's kind of fun. And I think this relates. Last fall, I went through Susie Welch's Becoming You process. Yeah. And I've sticky tacked kind of some chicken scratch brainstorming I had on my values that kind of appeared as I went through her process and ideas that I had. And it's been really helpful to feel really proud of myself that I went through that and I was able to take action that has led to doors opening. But like on hard days where I'm like, oh, it's like, is this new job worth it? I read through that and I'm like, it is. Like I went through process and this is like really what I was looking for. So that I think having it written down, but the reminder and circling back on that, it does just kind of rejuvenate that momentum as we go through transitions.
Yeah, because when things get hard, and I know things have been hard, you can go back. You can look at, what is the commitment that I made? What do I know about myself that I didn't know before that helps inform my decisions, that helped inform that initial decision, that can help me when that decision is sometimes hard?
So I kind of want to go into one more area before we wrap up, Kendra, because I think one of the places physician spouses most need to hear is that this is also true in our marriages. The match, really, all transitions in medicine can be really hard on a marriage. And a lot of
Yeah,
couples arrive at new seasons without having decided who they're going to be in it together.
it is hard. So we can use these same principles that we've talked about, deciding ahead of time. Everybody who's married already knows it's not necessarily the easiest thing.
Yeah.
And there's probably been times in this journey where you guys, myself included, going through the motion, just surviving, just putting one foot in front of the other, making it till the next day. One of the decisions that all couples can make, whether they're starting med school, whether they're starting residency, or regardless of which point on the journey you are, is to decide ahead of time that we are going to protect something in this season, that we're going to stay curious about each other. We are going to name what's hard instead of swallowing it. And that we are going to find our way back to each other at the end of long weeks, at the end of long rotations. That is a decision that you can make ahead of time that will help inform your behavior and the way that you show up in your marriage.
And just like with anything, when we make that decision and work at it, and take action, I don't know, I just feel like it becomes sacred ground.
I
Sacred
absolutely
spaces.
agree. Yeah, and to some extent, all of us are in our own sacred space, our own sacred trial, something is happening to all of us at some point. Having a decision, having a commitment, having a goal, to know that it's on your mind, that informs behavior. All right, the thing that's been running through the last couple of weeks and really through everything that we talk about on this podcast is the internal landscape. The city, the program, the schedule, the paycheck, the house, whatever. Those are circumstances. They're real and they matter, but they don't actually determine your experience. You do.
Yeah. And this practice of deciding ahead of time is a concrete way that we can exercise that to say, before I walk into this, I'm going to be specific about it and I'm going to choose what I want to see, who I'm going to be as we go through this.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect, and that doesn't mean you're not going to have hard days in it, and it's certainly not going to be without moments of grief and self-doubt and exhaustion. But with a decision that's already made, with an anchor already set, and a direction already chosen, you are well on your way.
Yeah, just like that man from the story who poses the question, like, how are people where you were last time? Like, we get to choose.
So here's what I want to offer you today. Whatever transition is on your horizon, match, move, new season, new year, new baby, something new in your marriage, a new version of yourself that you're slowly trying to find your way towards, decide ahead of time who you're going to be in it.
Yeah, I love that. Write it down, put it on the wall, get some sticky tack, put it on the wall, revisit it, and let that just become your new reality.
Yeah, and return to it when things get hard, because they are going to get hard. That was never a question. The question is what you're going to be holding on to when it does get hard.
Yeah, so our reflection questions. Number 1, what transition is on your horizon right now, near or far?
Second, what story are you already running about that transition? And is it a story, a fact, or a prediction?
Third, What would you decide right now ahead of time about who you are going to be in that?
Sit with that third question. Write your answers down somewhere that you can find them. In month 3, when things get really hard and you've forgotten, you already chose.
Yeah. I just want to say, you brought up the specific time, month 3, like, and just remember that's always part of the story. We always hit that resiliency curve where it's like, this
Yeah.
is the point in the story when things get tough, and that's just how it goes.
That is the work, and you are not doing it alone.
Thank you so much for being with us today. If this episode is landing for you, please share it, especially with someone who is heading through a transition soon in their life, who might need to hear that they have more agency than they think they do.
Yes, you can find us on Instagram at Supporting Physician Spouses, or send us an email at hello@supportingphysicianspouses.com. We genuinely love to hear from you. Your messages are one of the reasons we keep showing up.
Until next time, you're not doing this alone. You are not just along for the ride. You are getting to decide how you show up in it.
See you next time.
See you.